The market in Europe and North America is, because of financial considerations, moving much more to supply chain financing, dynamic discounting, and really leveraging the opportunity where large buyers have cash to expend and suppliers don't. They need to potentially be paid earlier, either through a third-party banking relationship or from the buyer's funds themselves. I'd be interested to know what your plans are, and are they in place for supply chain financing and dynamic discounting?
I think this is a very interesting question, and of course that's a current trend that is happening right now. But I want to say also, it's somewhat also old wine and new bottles, so I think Pete from Purchase Insight, he pointed this out, that this is very old ideas being recycled. So if you look at stuff like supply chain finance and dynamic discounting, it's been around for 20 years. It has had limited success, and I think right now it has only had success for very large suppliers and having banks or similar finance it. And I think even as we're reinventing this stuff for this age, I think we're running into many of the same problems that we did 10 years ago. And I think one very obvious problem with these technologies is, or these solutions is, that as a buyer or even as a vendor in this marketplace, you earn very little money from the large suppliers who are sending the majority of the volume, because those suppliers, they're so large that they have alternative funding sources that are extremely cheap. And any offer you extend to them of finance or credit has to be competitive versus banks and others who are finding very hard to retain these suppliers as customers. So in the part of the supply chain that my competition and the other networks have traditionally onboarded, which is the top suppliers, the business case for supply chain finance and dynamic discounting is not very good. Let's say you're a buyer and you want to use your own cash to extend it to pay earlier to your suppliers to get a rebate. Well, any large supplier would compare that offer with any financing offer he has from his own credit lines. And if you're a large supplier, you can get very, very cheap access to finance. So the thing is, where the business case is, both for the buyers and for the vendors, is actually in the long tail. And I think, what some of the players who are now entering, and are very excited about the stuff they're doing, I think they will have to learn that, you need a lot of volume from a lot of small suppliers to make a real business case out of this for the long run. So I think these are potentially some of the most exciting developments in the industry, but I think most players have underestimated what kind of volume you need, and also that you need access to the long tail, something that is extremely hard for most of my competition because they focus their business model and they're set up on the largest suppliers.
So you do supply chain financing or dynamic discounting, I understand, with two organizations, Taulia and Prime Revenue. Is it much more of Tradeshift focused to push or offer supply chain financing, dynamic discounting for the low volume suppliers or the smaller suppliers rather than the larger ones?
So we have solutions through our partners that cover the whole supply chain, end-to-end, supply chain finance, dynamic discounting, whatever you want to call it. But I think what we are really trying to do is we want to become the best platform for these kind of players. And we see that those who specialize in these solutions, they need volume and they need access to a platform where the suppliers actually are and they're using it. And that is our strategy. I think it's not a real strategy to just sort of repackage credit cards or something like that and offer that to suppliers at absurd rates. That will be fun for a short amount of time, but it won't generate any real value as we go ahead, especially not for the buyer. Then these solutions just become a new tax on the supply chain on top of the invoicing tax the suppliers are already paying.